Well, Kylan, first of all, it is great to see you. I can't remember the last time you were on the show with me. Kylan Mills is back. There's nothing going on, folks. We'll try to think of something to talk about. And yeah, obviously, we're going to talk about Draymond Green. That is next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's show is brought to you by FanDuel, and more specifically, the FanDuel Sportsbook, the official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more. Visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started. You can follow Kylan Mills on all social media platforms, including TikTok, Instagram, Twitter. Are you on Threads yet?
Dude, I'm not. I'm just nervous, Cyrus. Like, is this
Why?
a trend that's going to die out, or is this going to be a real thing? Also, like, part of the reason why I don't want to go on it is because why did everyone post about joining Threads in like the same 3 days? Did you notice that? Like, I got notifications everywhere, people being like, I'm on Threads, I'm on Threads, I'm on Threads. And I was just like, you know what? I got to wait for, the craze to die down, and, I'll join fashionably late because I could not believe I could not believe that like everyone just like inundated it at once. So I will, but I'm like waiting to see if it's like a fad. I don't know.
I don't know if it's going to be a fad. It's not fully there yet just because you can't customize your home feed. So right now it just kind of exists, but
Okay.
I do think there's potential there. Yeah. And regardless,
Cool.
I'm on there. You can follow me at Dog Wild. You can also follow me on Twitter at Dog Surf Roadshow. And obviously, and look at all the love you're getting in the chat, Kylan. You have been missed.
I know. I'm sorry, guys. It's been like a crazy few weeks. I was out of town. Daniel, what's up? Lil Panda, what's up? Kev, something, but I'm just going to say, Kev, what's up? Thank you guys for always following us. It's always good. And I can't wait to see what everyone has to say about some of the drama today.
Oh, we're going to get into
it. A lot to talk about.
Well, in case you were sleeping under a rock and you're unfamiliar with what went on today, it actually, I think, happened yesterday, but it got published today. And that was Draymond Green going on Patrick Beverley's podcast and not holding back. Typical Draymond fashion, right? But he said some things that really stirred the pot. And why don't we just get right into it and play first the soundbite that really had everyone talking the most. And that was his comments pertaining to Jordan Poole. Draymond Green was asked about Draymond Green was asked about that from Patrick Beverley, and here's what Draymond had to say about Jordan Poole being traded.
I don't just hit people. Dialogue, of course, happens over time, and you usually ain't just triggered by something like that fast, to that degree. You know what I'm saying? Like, this is a team. You know what I'm saying? Like, ain't nobody on my team triggering me, in an instant. We know stuff that you don't say amongst men. You know what I'm saying? We know things that you have to stand on.
All right. So, and I think the gist of that is that Draymond is basically saying that Jordan Poole knew better than whatever it is he said that triggered Draymond Green. I think Draymond Green's insinuation is that he just doesn't go around punching people for no good reason. You and I think I've told you off the record. I can't say it on the record, but I think I told you, Kylan, you can confirm this if you want or not, what was going on with Draymond that day. He had a very serious personal issue. Now, I'm not sitting here defending violence. I'm not sitting here condoning Draymond throwing a punch the way he did. But I will say this. He had a very serious issue going on. It had to do with his family. And I could understand him being in a horrible, pissy mood about that and not being happy in life about that. Again, not justification for Jordan Poole getting cold cocked the way he did, just adding some context because Draymond Green, again, is insinuating that Jordan Poole basically should have known better than to say what he said when he said it to Draymond Green to get the punch. Kylan, great to see you again. How are you again? And your reaction to Draymond's comments that was not just on YouTube, by the way, not just on the podcast, also on Twitter. We'll get into that in just a moment. But what's your immediate reaction?
Yeah, so I tweeted out a little bit of my reaction, but it's along the lines of I'm disappointed. To be frank, I just feel like this is an issue that needs to be laid to bed. I understand Draymond wanting to go on a podcast, maybe share his side of the story, try to justify it. But I just feel like at this point, we're 10 months removed from the situation happening, 9, 10 months removed from the situation happening. Jordan Poole is no longer with the Golden State Warriors. He's moved on to Washington. I just feel like the best case scenario is for everyone to move on. And, I just don't think there's a need to address it at this point, to try to justify or defend yourself. Like, let the issue die. And I know some people brought up when I did tweet that, just like, oh, well, the media brought it up in Washington. The media brought it up, we're asking Jordan Poole about it. Like, yeah, I get it. And Jordan Poole didn't address it flat out. And I think that's the right response is, let it die. Just move on. I don't know. I think that's the right move given the situation. It's been a long time. I think everyone wants to move forward. And by bringing this up and justifying or bringing up what may have happened behind the scenes only dredges up old drama. And I don't think there's anything positive that can come from dredging up old drama. Like, what is the benefit here to Draymond Green going on a podcast and talking about this? And Jordan Poole certainly could have gone and talked to the Washington media defending himself and saying, well, I didn't say that, I said this, or, he could have also made a case for himself, but then we're just perpetuating the issue at that point. If we're talking in late July that both Draymond and let's say Jordan Poole went in and started then responding to Draymond, then you're just starting the chain of events all over again. And it's like, why? Just move on. Just let it go. That's how I feel about the situation. That's what I think is the best move forward. Like, both players are ready to move on with their respective teams. Let it go. By continuing to talk about it, you're bringing it back up again, and you're opening up the door to continue the discussion about this issue, to create more drama and to create more of a back and forth that just doesn't need to happen. And there were some subtle jabs in the statements that he made, whether they're true or not. To me, it doesn't matter. Let everyone move on and just let it go. That's my thought. What do you think, Cy?
No, I hear you there. I don't see the need in bringing it up again. My feeling is that Draymond is defensive about it. Like, he probably still hears it. He probably my guess is he probably is ashamed of himself for what he did. So maybe this is his coping mechanism. Maybe just continually talking about it out loud is some sort of therapy for him, where he's kind of like, by saying it out loud, maybe he's going to believe it more, that, that it was justifiable, that he's not the monster that he's being portrayed out to be. I'm totally with you that he didn't need to say it. In a selfish way, I'm happy he said it, because we're in late July. We have damn near nothing to talk about. And now we got potentially an hour worth of content. But I digress there. But it didn't just end there. So originally, Draymond said those comments, and then the drama carried over into Twitter. And I'm going to share my screen as well for the YouTube viewers, just to see what was going on there. And the drama continued by Jordan Poole's father. This is allegedly Jordan's dad's Twitter account, Anthony Poole at @Poole98. He replied to a tweet that was published by Patrick Beverley's podcast account. And he wrote the following, quote, "I'm stand on this. That is some BS. JP was his guy, and he avoided me all last year. He is soft as female dog, and I'm standing on this, and he didn't apologize to me and my wife, so he lame, and me and him can meet anytime he want," unquote. And I just read that completely verbatim, so apologies if it sounded broken there a little bit in terms of grammar. And then Draymond responded to that, and this is where I'm really thinking that Draymond has an issue with this in terms of the way he was portrayed. I do feel like he's on full defense mode on a personal
100%.
level, not on a basketball court. And so he responded to that by saying, quote, "That's so cute. It's impossible to avoid you in arena for a year, champ." And again, I'm just reading this verbatim. I got get my family from that family room every game, and stop using those words. They usually don't go over well amongst men," unquote. The amongst men part is something he said repeatedly. And I feel like that's a dig towards Jordan Poole, basically saying that Jordan Poole is not mature, whereas he's mature. I just want to add to that real fast. When the incident happened last, I think October, if my memory serves correct, or September, whatever it was, Jordan Poole's dad was really upset. And so for like a few days after the incident, when the punch first happened, like I reported, for example, that Jordan Poole had not spoken to Draymond yet. This was about 3-4 days after the incident. And the source was Jordan Poole's dad, because Jordan Poole's dad was really pissed off about what happened. Yep. And he was going around talking to a lot of media. And that's where I was informed that Poole had not spoken to Dre. And a day or two after that, I believe the news came out that they started speaking from there. But what are your thoughts on that, on Jordan Poole's dad? Do you have a thought, or do you want to share those thoughts after we do our one ad for the show?
Yeah, let's leave it as a tease. I have many thoughts. You aren't going to want to miss them. But first,
a word from our sponsors, and that is, in this case, FanDuel. I cannot wait for the day when FanDuel is officially legal in California. But look, you can always travel to other states and play there. Look, take your first swing. Right now it's baseball season at betting Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount and bonus bets up to $200. Just bet $20 and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, regardless of whether or not you win or lose. That's $200 you could spend betting everything from the money line to the over under to who you think is going to the first to have the first home run. And it's all on an app that's safe, that's secure, and super easy to use. Again, I cannot wait for FanDuel to be a part of my life here in California. I've played with it. This sounds awful. When I've traveled to other places. And it's insanely fun. It's almost the user friendliness of it is wild. And I cannot wait for California to embrace FanDuel. And again, when you win, you get paid instantly. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. So sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get paid up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day for the everydayers, which I feel like is more and more of you. I cannot thank you enough for the support, for the love. On tomorrow's show, I have no idea what's coming. CJ Holmes is going to come on the show soon. But folks, I'm really excited. Colin, we haven't even talked about this. I'm speaking with the Warriors about bringing on an assistant coach on this show as a guest.
Good.
Stay tuned for that. I'll let you know when that happens, Kylan, so you can join me for that interview. And follow the program on Twitter at Locked On Dubs. That's where we make all our announcements about guests, times, shows, etc. So Kylan, your thoughts? Was Jordan Poole's dad out of line getting in the mix on Twitter? Do you think it was justified? Draymond responded. Your thoughts?
I mean, I just think all around the best case scenario for anyone surrounding the situation is to just take the high road and just move on rather than continuing to perpetuate the drama. I would say that applies to Jordan Poole's dad as well. However, this is the environment that Draymond Green is creating by bringing this up, by talking about it on a podcast, by making the subtle comments and jabs and whatever else. Like, this is my point, in that it's only elongating the situation by making these comments and making these statements on a podcast, is that there's going to be people who respond and feel a certain way. And then you're carrying on the conversation and carrying the drama into next season, which is why I think it's best for all parties involved to, whether you think you're right, whether you have justification, you think someone's wrong, just to take the high road and move on rather than hash out this public beef. I don't see a positive coming for any sides involved in this, like whether Jordan Poole's dad's right or Jordan Poole or Draymond. And here's the thing, like, I'm sure there is more context to what happened. You mentioned some things going on in Draymond's personal life. Jordan Poole must have said something, but at this point, what does it matter? What is to be gained? I mean, like, it happened 9 months ago, 10 months ago, and everyone just needs to move forward. I just don't see positives coming from bringing it back up, regardless of whatever additional context happens surrounding it, regardless of whether or not Draymond interacted with Jordan Poole's dad or avoided him or whatever happened. Like, it's in the past. I don't see a positive. I think that, it's just best for all parties involved to let it go and move forward. And now we've got Draymond responding to Jordan Poole's dad. And again, it's just carrying on this beef that I feel like just squash it and just move on. Another thing I want to bring up, just because you mentioned Draymond's comments about, like, these aren't words said amongst men, and maybe, inclinations or him indicating that Jordan Poole was immature. And I think Jordan Poole is or was immature. I mean, I don't know what he's like today and interact with him, but I mean, I think we saw some signs on the basketball court that we've talked about that showed his youth. And the fact of the matter is, Jordan Poole, when this happened last year, is 23 years old. He came into the organization, as a teenager. So he is young. And Draymond Green is 9 years his senior. So when it comes to someone who should be able to rise above the immaturity or take the high road, like, to me, I look more to Draymond to set that tone and to take the leadership route, because he is the veteran in the situation. He is the player who, when this occurred, is 32, getting into it with a 23-year-old who clearly does have a little bit of immaturity. And that's not a shot at Jordan Poole. Part of it's just a product of his age and Draymond Green being the veteran. So I don't know that sits with me as being, I don't know, like I said, those subtle comments as being real jabs, because to me, it's like, yeah, he was 23, you were 32 when this altercation happened. Yeah, he probably has some growing to do and maturing to do, but on the same foot, like, Draymond Green, you got to rise above this. And I just, like I said, I don't know that continuing to talk about it is the route to go. Again, I'm sure there is more context to what happened behind the scenes, but I just don't think it needs to be out there at this point in time. Like, this is a team that wants to chase a ring. We are starting to get closer to preseason happening. Like, let's just not drag this out anymore and let's move on.
Absolutely. I'm totally with you. There was absolutely no need for Draymond to bring this up. I know he was asked the question. Doesn't mean you have to elaborate the way you did. And it just makes me think that he himself has become very insecure when it comes to this specific situation. He probably feels like the bad guy in this, and he maybe in his head he thinks by talking about it he's clearing his name. It seems to be doing the complete opposite. I've never seen so many members of Dub Nation upset with him. I've never seen this. Like there are a lot of fans out there. I'm looking at the chat. I'm looking at social media for the last day and a half, and there are folks who love the Warriors. Who are literally saying, I want him off the team. I'm not supporting him in this. They're calling him a bully. It's crazy. I mean, do you, what are your thoughts on the way Dub Nation has responded to this? Are you surprised? Is this par for course? What are your thoughts on that, Kylan?
I mean, I think if you're going to support the Warriors, you got to support Draymond Green on and off the court, and the fire that he brings on the floor carries over off the court. And it's the way that he's been. He's an outspoken individual. So I think it's a little bit, I think the reactions are a little bit extreme, but I think I also understand where people are coming from. Part of the reason why you love Draymond when he plays is because of the fire he brings. However, that also does carry into his personality off the court, that he's very fiery and outspoken and opinionated. And I think that's fine. I'm not as critical of him having a podcast or like speaking on podcasts as some other people are. Like, if he wants to have that platform outside of sports, if it's not interfering with his play, like, I'm just someone that, like, I'm not going to get my panties in a bunch about it. Unlike some Warriors fans who are, like super like anti-podcast. I just think that in this situation, you did not need to talk about it in this way. Make a quick comment, we're all trying to move on from the whatever and just let it go. To me, I don't know. I think some of the reactions are extreme, but at the same time, I understand people's frustrations because I think Draymond could have handled the situation differently.
Yeah, no, I'm totally with you. And that doesn't just apply to his podcast appearance. I want to share this image with you, and I'll and verbalize it as much as possible for the podcast listeners. But Draymond was totally duped. This is my number one beef.
Oh, is this the Kevin Garnett thing?
Oh, hell yeah. And this is literally the biggest reason why I'm jumping to Threads is I like a platform where I can actually trust the source, right? The blue check marks, what it used to mean on Twitter is, okay, you are who you say you are. That does not apply anymore under this current system. I honestly, I don't, if Elon just set this system up where like anyone can get a blue check mark, provided you verify your identity in the process, great. I'd be all for that. But I don't like the fact that anyone can just say there's someone and just by twisting a single letter in a Twitter account, people get duped. And case in point, Draymond Green today, there was a Twitter account called the NBA Centel. There is an R missing in there, and there's a second E instead of an A. But I think the intent there is to call it NBA Central. and said the account was called NBA Centel. The account, by the way, is suspended now. But they tweeted out the following tweet, which said that Kevin Garnett is calling out Draymond Green, saying Draymond punching Jordan Poole is like a senior punching a freshman who's half his size. And so Draymond responded to that, wasn't too happy. It was an interesting response. I'll read it real fast. Quote, I tried you when I was a rookie, KG, and you started talking to yourself like I wasn't talking to you. What's that like? The freshman picking on a senior citizen that's double his size? Unquote. So he's basically accusing Kevin Garnett of hypocrisy before he realized that this was not real. Kevin Garnett himself even came out and tweeted and said, that's a fake tweet. Elon Musk, see what the F is happening, fix it. But nonetheless, Draymond Green got duped. I was actually fascinated by what he wrote. I mean, because that basically tells you from what Draymond said that in his rookie year or early in his career, Kevin Garnett, who is another notorious trash talker, would not trash talk with Draymond. At least that's what Draymond was saying. But he got duped. I don't know. Any thoughts on that, Kyle?
That made me laugh so hard. And that's the problem with the no check mark / pay for a blue check mark era, like you brought up, is that you have to be super careful about who you're actually responding to and what the account is coming from. And like, I personally have like close calls where I have to like double take and you think something's a legitimate outlet and it's like, you double take the handle and you're like, this is not what I thought it was. So my reaction is just, that's hilarious. Like how freaking awkward now that actual Kevin Garnett's like, bro, that wasn't me. And Draymond already made the comments. Oh, it was so funny. That's the era that we're in.
Yes, it is.
Someone also pointed something out before, we move on from this topic in the comments. Like Draymond also is not innocent of smack talking his own teammates. Several people brought up the Kevin Durant incident, him calling KD a certain name, something that shouldn't be said.
Another female dog,
amongst men. And I think those folks have a point. I mean, I think they have a point in terms of, him now bringing this up in regards to whatever was said between him and Jordan Poole. Like, well, you've also been guilty and didn't get punched. So I'm just saying. I get where people are coming from bringing up those couple comments. But anyway, so that's all I got on that.
Yeah, and I like this comment from Damick1212. Reminds me of when Kendrick Perkins Kuminga was 7'2". That was a ridiculous a joke being spread around for a little bit. Jonathan Kuminga did not grow.
Can we keep that going this season? Can we talk about how Jonathan Kuminga is our 7'2" guy or 7-footer? Because that was actually hysterical. And for folks who didn't see that, Kendrick Perkins like legitimately said it that, have you heard? Jonathan Kuminga is now 7'2". Like legitimately said that on TV from a Ballsack Sports. Was it Ballsack that?
I don't know. There's two big ones. There's Ballsack. I already forgot the other one. But Crack, I think is the other one. From
one of those one of the parody accounts tweeted that Jonathan Kuminga had grown to 7'2", and Perkins legit said it as fact on TV, which was
part of what made that would fuel that joke or whatever you want to call it is Andre Iguodala ran with it. Andre Iguodala is so cryptic and so weird with his tweets that like it almost read like a fact, and I think that didn't help things. But yeah, regardless, absolutely, just double check your sources, folks, please.
Double and triple check nowadays. But all I'm saying is, guys, we don't need another 7-footers. And people are commenting in the chat, the Dubs need to pick up a backup center that's 7 feet. We've got Jonathan Kuminga in Kendrick Perkins' mind, who is now 7'2".
And Kuminga, I'm gonna bring up later in the show, and I'd love your thoughts on that. But I'll save that for a little bit later. Right now, what I want to ask you, Kylan.
Okay.
Among all this chatter. Especially among Dub Nation, the disgruntled folks are saying something that I don't agree with, which is that the Warriors did not need Draymond Green to win all 4 of their championships. Do not agree with that take at all. Regardless of whether or not you like him or you don't like him, regardless of your opinions on his behavior on and off the court, the Warriors, and I would steadfastly, strongly, with conviction say this, do not win any of those 4 titles without Draymond. They're not winning a 5th title this year if they don't re-sign Draymond. So again, this is not me endorsing Draymond's behavior, but this is sports and this is professional sports. There is one goal here, and that is to win. And there's only one winner among the 30 teams in the NBA every year. And because of Draymond, again, this is not, I mean, we can argue this, I guess, but I don't know how you can, but you could debate it, I suppose. But regardless, the Warriors don't win any of those 4 championships without him. He does bring tremendous value there. He also brings tremendous value in terms of Stephen Curry, who loves him. Klay Thompson loves him. Steve Kerr went to bat and helped get him that extension. The ownership gave him a 4-year, $100 million deal. So his value as a player, to me, it goes without saying. Do you agree with that notion, Kylan? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. And that's where I was saying, like, I think if you support Draymond on the court, you do have to support and recognize that you got to put up with some of the stuff off the court. Does that mean that there's still room for growth for him and he could have handled situations like this differently? Yeah, of course. But at the same time, there are not 4 rings without Draymond Green. I truly believe that. What he does for the Warriors can't be replicated by anyone else in the league. And I truly believe that. At least during this last run, he was the right fit for this Warriors team. And it's interesting because I know he used to have more of an offensive game. It's depleted over the years, and people often point to that. But like the things he does as a glue player in this lineup don't necessarily show up on the stat sheet, but are integral to the way the Warriors execute. And, you know, the way he facilitates the offense, works, you know, in the pick and roll with Steph. It works within Steve Kerr's system, is telling everyone where to go, is a complete floor general defensively, always is making the right plays in the right place at the right time, mixing it up on the boards, defending whoever the best player is on the other team. I mean, those are just things that, you know, not every player can do, A, and B, not every player fits in with the Warriors the way he does. So I just think there are a number of things that aren't always obvious via the eye test or if you glance at a stat sheet, but the things he does can't be replicated by another player in the league. And then the relationship piece is huge that you pointed out. The relationship that Draymond, Klay, and Steph have still sitting together on the team plane, as Bob Myers pointed out this season. I mean, you don't bring in a random person off the street with a similar skill set to Draymond, who has those same relationships, who knows the offense, who can lead this team in the emotional way that he does, that he knows so many of the players well. And besides those 3, you know, the other key pieces that have been here a couple seasons, and the Kevon Looney's, you know, who've been here a while and a part of several of the championships, Andre Iguodala, you know, the other guys who've won multiple. I mean, I think there's something to be said for the relationships that he has developed and the way that he works in the system, the way he works with Steve Kerr. I don't think there are 4 rings without Draymond, and I truly believe that. Now, do I think his time do I think he's in his twilight and that I don't know how much longer the run will last? Yeah, but I think looking back at the run to this point, Draymond, it has been a key piece, and it all doesn't come together without him.
Totally. Toilet Tisha, you're right. He did request last year to miss a game to see LeBron break the scoring record. And Steve Kerr was like, no, come on. What are you doing? I want to play. There's a couple sound bites besides the topic of Jordan Poole. Are you on a schedule, by the way, Kylan? Are you available for us if we want to push this?
No. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. There's so much to talk about still. I want to play the soundbite real fast. We will move on from Draymond Green soon. There's a few other topics to get to. There are still free agents out there. There's still some open roster positions. But Draymond said a few other things that I thought was rather interesting. One of those was pertaining to Chris Paul. And I hope I got the right soundbite here. Let me pull this up. Because Chris Paul and Draymond Green have had their own history. And Draymond Green was asked about the on-court rivalry with Chris Paul, all the back and forth jawing, and how that's going to translate now that Paul is on the team. So here is Draymond Green. I hope this is the right clip.
Not only do I not think there's many guys that has the next level of basketball IQ, there's not many guys that have a basketball IQ in the NBA. Like, you talking less than 60% of the NBA.
And he's been nice.
Like
yeah.
He's been really nice.
Generous.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm really generous. Like, don't have an IQ.
What's the ATL? My fault. ATL. Like, some coaches don't know what ATOs are. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, no cap.
Like, knowing the game of basketball in this league is like one of the biggest skills you can have because it separates you immediately. Maybe not as extreme as like Steph Curry jump shot separates him, but just having a basketball IQ in this league immediately gives you a leg up because guys don't understand the game.
Okay, so I found the clip. I'll play it in a second, but I wanted to play that one as well. That is Draymond basically. That is interesting. I've never really heard a pro say that before until then, which is that what he's basically saying is the majority of NBA players are dumb. The majority of people in the NBA are dumb. Fascinating to me. And Patrick Beverley was doubling down. He was saying you're being kind, saying that the number of people who don't have a basketball IQ. I've always complained about that myself. There are a lot of people who think they know this game until you hear them talk about it. What are your thoughts on that, Kylan, real fast, in terms of basketball IQ?
I think it's interesting. So wait, so your take is that you think there is a basketball IQ problem amongst NBA players?
Oh yeah, I think across the board. I think coaches, execs.
Okay, so top down even.
Oh
so you
yeah,
think front offices and everything.
Big time. I think so. I think whether it's players, whether it's coaches, execs, so many of these people get to where they are because of who they know. This is a rampant nepotistic network, if that's proper nomenclature. Yeah, I do believe that wholeheartedly. Just because I see and hear what these people are saying, and I'm like, I just kind of double take to a lot of this crap that comes out. And Draymond's echoing it, but then you also have people in the chat saying Draymond doesn't know a thing. So who knows? I don't know. What do you think?
It's an interesting question. I think that, yeah, I think there's something to be said. I think that there could be an improvement in the overall basketball IQ, but I think a lot of that to me also starts at the youth level. And that's where I've talked to some folks around the NBA that have talked about, the need for better coaching, even when it starts at a young age and in the AAU system, and that there's got to be better development in that regard. And that's something that I know I've heard just from talking to different people who cover the NBA and some other, and especially it's come up in talking about the issue of young players being ready to adjust to the NBA level. And it goes beyond just being young and the physical skill set. A lot of it that, a big part of that takes an adjustment period for young players is the mental side, is the understanding the game, being able to work in these different offenses. And what I have been hearing time and time again is a lot of it is the lack of preparation coming up from the youth level in AAU basketball and high school basketball programs, that there just isn't enough coaching. So I'm going to say, yes, I agree. I think there needs to be, there's a basketball IQ problem, or, I don't know if I want to say a problem, but I think it could be improved. But I think that a big thing is that, there could be an improvement in the coaching starting at the youth level. And that's something that I've heard from a lot of folks talking about young players coming in and not being prepared. And specifically here in the Bay Area, you've got, what's the basketball? And you're seeing more of these basketball academies pop up. What's the one that's up in Napa called? Why am I blanking? It's one of the best ones in the country.
Well, when you're trying to think of that, I just want to add, this is where I feel like the college game is neglected. I really wish the college game had the same talent, had the same recruitment power it once did, because it's not just the sport itself. At least in college, you're getting social development. You're getting challenged by professors or your peers, which makes you think and develop your critical thinking skills. Yeah, and I think that might be a part of it too, in my humble opinion. But
Prolific Prep, that's what I was thinking of. And I've been up there and I've done some interviews. Prolific Prep up in Napa, California, is one of the best basketball academies in the country, pumping out, stars. Adem Bona, who played at UCLA this past year and I think is coming back now. He ended up not declaring for the draft. Yeah, he's coming back, but was one of the highest rated recruits. They're pumping out a lot of the top recruits in high school. And I know one of the things that I've talked to even their coaching staffs about is needing to teach a lot of these players about different systems, how to play the game and how to read the game that these players are not being provided or being taught growing up. And from what I've, talked to them about, and especially players who come in that are super athletic or super strong, have good size at a young age, they're not taught anything. They're taught to stand under the basket and catch and shoot. Or if they're a super, quick athletic guard, their team just throws them the ball and they're just told to free rein run down the court. So that's something that I've heard, and talking to coaches who are working at, the high school or even the collegiate level, or in talking to people around the NBA about some of the problems with the young players that come in, is that they aren't necessarily being taught the game. And then to me, that's where I agree with you. Part of the problem is that, I think there is some of that done at the college level, but players are bypassing the college level. And sometimes one season isn't enough, depending on where you're playing, what the fit is, that you're getting some of that. And you also mentioned just maturity, leadership. So I know in going to, like, for example, Prolific Prep, they do an awesome job of like teaching players the game, like teaching them how to read defenses, teaching them different systems. It's so crazy to me, just like talking to folks like that about how little some of these players know that are some of the highest prospects in the country that are transferring into their schools at the high school level. And then, they also take a lot of time, I know, at Prolific Prep and a lot of these academies, teaching them leadership and teaching them maturity, finances, business. So I think it goes even deeper than like basketball IQ. To me, I look more at like, how are we preparing the next generation of NBA stars to adjust to the game? And that's, to me, where I see a little bit of a shortcoming.
I'm totally with you. Stay tuned. We're going to do part 2. We're gonna finish up on the Draymond conversation, because Dre did talk about Chris Paul. And he also talked about his agent, Rich Paul. That was a very rather insightful tidbit he dropped on the show. And then we're going to get to the Golden State Warriors and actual basketball, because Kylan, you haven't had a chance to give everyone else your thoughts on Summer League. There are still some free agents out there. We're not done yet, folks. Stick around. Part 2 is next. This is Locked On Warriors.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get podcasts and on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. You can follow Kylan Mills on all social media platforms except Threads. She's too good for that. But everywhere else, I'm kidding.
Soon enough, okay?
But everywhere else, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, you can follow her just by her name, Kylan Mills. Super easy. You can follow me on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow and on Threads at Dog Wild. This is the comment I wanted to play originally, but we're saving it for the beginning of part 2. And this is Draymond Green discussing Chris Paul, his relationship with him, how it's going to go with them as teammates. Here is Draymond Green.
It's not sugarcoating what has happened all these years. This is real life, man. Like, people get it twisted, like, oh man, like you're in character when you're. No, this is real life we live in when we playing in these games. And so, like, to just go front and act like all of those things was fake. Like, I publicly said I didn't like Chris before. Like, I'm just not gonna be like, oh man, that changed. Now he's my teammate. No, I look forward to talking amongst men. I look forward to working with another adult. I've had my fair share of days of like not working with adults and people who don't move like adults. So I'm looking forward to going to work with an adult. You know what I'm saying? So.
All right, so Chris Paul is an adult. That is what Draymond Green was trying to say. I thought it was interesting, though, that Draymond Green was very emphatic in saying that what happens on the basketball court is real life. It's not an act. I think what he was trying to say is that he doesn't fake it out there. So when you saw animosity between him and Chris Paul, what he was trying to say, I think, is that it's genuine. But he also seems to be very appreciative of Chris Paul being on his team now. What did you think about that, Kylan?
I think it'll be very interesting. I am skeptical of how the relationship's going to shake out with Chris Paul and Draymond Green. He can say what he wants now. We know what's happened in the past. Yeah, everyone's professionals, but are they going to gel? Like, that's one of my biggest questions about Chris Paul coming into this organization. I know we talked about it on past episodes, but his comments, when he did make a couple of statements and appearances at Summer League, didn't necessarily make me feel better in regards to Chris Paul not wanting to come off the bench or saying, oh, no, that's not a conversation that's had. What makes you think that? Now, granted, I think the question could have been worded better in that specific situation. Go on Twitter. If you're a fan of Dub Nation, I'm sure you already know what I'm talking about. But when asked about how he might work with a second unit, Chris Paul got very defensive. Like, what makes you think I'm going to work with a second unit? Which was concerning to me because like
And before that, just say it real quick. He also said, "Are you the coach?" Even before he said that.
Yes.
It was very he was very short with the reporter who asked that. But I started.
Yeah, and now, like I said, I think the question could have certainly been worded better, but I don't think he needed to respond in that way. And it concerned me a little bit about why the conversation hadn't been had amongst the Warriors organization and Chris Paul about what his role is going to be. Like when trading him, I think that should have been carved out and spelled out very early on.
Same.
If he is going to come in off the bench, and if he is going to work with a second unit, that's something that should have been clearly established, or I see there being problems. The last thing the Warriors want to deal with is an aging Chris Paul who's a malcontent in the second unit. So, I mean, I'm concerned beyond just how he's going to work with Draymond, because those are two guys who have been around the league a while, are, both strong personalities. How is it going to work out? I don't know. And I also just am concerned, how is Chris Paul going to embrace his role, whatever that is? Those comments that he made me a little bit skeptical, because I assumed when they traded him, like, this is going to be a second unit role for Chris Paul, and this is something that he is okay with, and that's why he came to the Warriors. Like that whole thing just made me, in general, skeptical as to how this was all going to shake out. So beyond Draymond Green, like Draymond Green's comments, like don't rock the boat for me, but like Draymond's a big personality. Chris Paul is a big personality. I don't think he necessarily wants to take a back seat based on the way he spoke in Summer League. So how the Warriors going to play it, I don't know. It'll be fascinating to watch.
As a media member, I'm very intrigued to see how this plays out in terms of the relationships. The Warriors just added another Hall of Famer to their locker room, and a vocal one at that. Someone who's not shy to share his opinions.
Exactly, and that's him and Draymond. Like I could see that clashing. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, the on-court product, I'm very intrigued. I cannot wait to see how this translates. Stick around, because I'm gonna ask Kylan a question. I brought this up a day or two ago in terms of what the Warriors are going to be this year, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on the metaphor I'm going to present to you. There's one more soundbite, and then we're done with Draymond. All right, it's time to move on. I feel like 45 minutes will be enough time to cover for Draymond Green's pretty wild podcast appearance on Patrick Beverley's show. This was him talking about his relationship with his agent, Rich Paul, and how the free agency process went. According to Draymond Green, there was more money out there and other teams were interested. Here's what Draymond had to say.
How much do you balance the kind of alchemy of wanting to get as much as you can for yourself, but also put your team in a position to build completely around you? How do you balance that?
One person that really helps me keep context of all of that is my agent, Rich. Rich, he was, most agents, I think they chase the buck, you know what I'm saying? Like they chase the most money that they can get. And what I can appreciate about Rich was his number one priority was keeping me there. He made it very clear to me. He had a certain dollar amount that he wanted to get to, that we wanted to get to, that we had spoke about before it all even began. I had other opportunities that would have paid me more money. And even when I would talk to him about what the benefit could be in those opportunities, that shiny object over there ain't always what it seems like. Yeah, we're going to get you paid, but your legacy is more important than anything.
There you go. And just to add to that, what wasn't included in that clip, but I listened to the full version. According to Draymond, he had offers out there where he could have made $10 million more a year, meaning he got 4 years, $100 million with the Warriors. According to Draymond, he could have gotten 4 years, $140 million from someone else. I mean, that's astounding to me if that's true. But the most shocking part of that clip to me is that Rich Paul, according to Draymond, told Draymond that it's more important for him to maintain his legacy by staying with the Warriors than it would be to get more money going elsewhere. That it was Rich Paul nudging him in that direction. That seems shocking to me. What do you think about that? That's wild.
Yeah, all of that's surprising. I agree. I mean, if true in terms of the dollar amounts, that is shocking to me for a player, just of Draymond Green's age and his skill set. I mean, that is a lot of money. And to me, I've said it throughout, the last year or two, we've been having conversations about Draymond Green's future. I don't know that he has the same value to other organizations that he does to the Warriors. I think Draymond Green is invaluable. He has been critical. The Warriors don't win the 4 championships without him, but I think he's a unique piece that fits in a unique way with the Warriors system, with the players around him, with the coaching staff. So if true, that's fascinating. I mean, I think Draymond Green's a future Hall of Famer, super talented, but he's in the twilight of his career. So if a team was really willing to put up that kind of money for him, I mean, that's it's an eyebrow raiser for sure, but good for him. It's true. What was the second half of that question again?
Well, just about, I don't know, whatever. It's not that important in all honesty. I just wanted, it was just about, I mean,
about him staying. I think the legacy piece is interesting because that to me is the most important piece of the puzzle. And that's something that I brought up when we were having conversations prior to Draymond Green making the announcement. We learned he was going to be a free agent. It was kind of expected as there were rumors that him and the Warriors were trying to renegotiate. So this would allow them to renegotiate an extension if he rejected the player option that he could have opted into, and that was my first thing, was that I thought that he was going to stay with the Warriors because the legacy piece is so important. And it's something we talked about on the show. Yeah. To me, it does impact Draymond Green's legacy. If he walks away from the Warriors in these last few years of his career, I don't think that his legacy is the same. In the NBA now, this type of loyalty is very, very few and far between. So rare. You do not see players stay their entire career with a single organization anymore. It just doesn't happen. And if the Warriors are able to do that for not just 1, 2, but 3 players in Draymond, Clay, and Steph, and win the championships they've already won, and possibly, hey, let's add in 1 or 2 more, we're going to be hopeful. That would literally be just cemented in the record books, just how special this dynasty was beyond the championships. That just doesn't happen. So if it was Rich Paul that convinced Draymond, I'm glad he did, because that was one of the first things that came to mind. Draymond Green is our Dennis Rodman. Yeah, I could see that 100%. Yeah. There's some similarities for sure. But I just think that if it was Rich Paul that convinced him, good for him. But that was one of the first things that popped into my mind. Yeah, maybe he could have gone and made more money somewhere else, but it's not going to be the same thing as the Warriors. And the legacy piece is something that money can't buy. And when you've retired and you've moved on from your career 10 years from now, how freaking cool is it if the Warriors are able to say, hey, we won 5 championships and we have 3 guys who came in and retired Golden State Warriors. That's something that, goes in the history books beyond just winning the championships, rather than saying, hey, I was traded away and took more money.
Totally agree with you. We're going to wrap up the Draymond discussion when we come back. And also because the one last thing I got to play, I forgot to mention this, is Matt Barnes chimed in. His focus wasn't so much on Dre's comments as it was on, did we ever find out what happened with the leak? I want to touch on that to finish up this whole discussion. And then I'm going to ask you, Kylan, about a metaphor I have pertaining to this Warriors team. It's interesting because to me, and I'm very curious to know if you agree or not, this Warriors team is going to be one of 2 former NBA teams from 2013. And it's either going to be a failure or a wild success. And I'll explain what I mean by that after we give some love once again to FanDuel, one of the official sponsors of the Locked On Podcast Network and the official sports book of the Locked On Podcast Network. Take your first swing at Major League Baseball on FanDuel and get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets. That's up to $200. That's right. If you just bet $20, you could land $200 in bonus bets, regardless of whether or not you win or lose. That's $200 you can spend betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to win or going to get the first home run. And it's all on an app that's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Plus, when you win, they pay you instantly. California, legalize it, please. There's no better place to bet on Major League Baseball than FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Sign up today and visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get up to $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball.
You are Locked On Warriors, your daily Golden State Warriors podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
you for making Locked On Warriors your first listen every day. For the everydayers, that is you folks who watch every day, and that number's growing. We can't thank you enough. Tomorrow on the show, possibly CJ Holmes. Regardless, in the near future, we're getting a Warriors assistant coach on the show. Super excited about that. Just follow us on Twitter at Locked On Dubs, where we post all our upcoming guests, times, and so forth. This soundbite right here. By the way, everyone follow Kylan Mills on all social media platforms, including Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok at Kylan Mills. Here is Matt Barnes, I'm sorry, the former Golden State Warriors. He was on, I believe, the 2017 championship team, and he brought up the leak, which has never been addressed. We've never found out who did it. Here is Barnes.
Okay.
Well, I want to know, with all this Warrior shit, Draymond and Poole's father, all this shit swirling around right now, who leaked that video from Golden State? And is that person fired? And why is this name out there right now? Because like I said, it was what it was, but fights happen so much. And this shit is escalating because this particular person released that motherfucking video. This shit would have been way less drama if we had just heard.
All right, sorry about the expletives there, but look, it's a good point. I mean, one of the first things that was said. Wait, what's going on here? Oh, here we go. One of the first things that was said when this leak happened from Steve Kerr and maybe Bob Myers was, we're going to find out who leaked this video. They were very intent on finding out who the rat was, who was the snitch. We never got a follow up on that. My theory, and this is just a theory. This is not rooted in reality. This is based strictly on trying to deduce logically who it could be. To me, the old adage in journalism is follow the money. And if you follow the money, which is where oftentimes you get your answers, I think, and again, I'm not basing this on anything that is reported as fact. This is just me guessing. My guess is someone in Jordan Poole's camp leaked that video. He's got this full-time photographer who follows him everywhere he goes. Every one of these players have a camp of people who come to practices and so forth. The only reason why I say Jordan Poole and someone with him possibly leaked it, that would be my guess, is because he had something to gain. He had a lot to gain. He was in contract negotiations at the time, but until that signature is on the dotted line signed, there are no guarantees in life. This video pretty much cemented that contract as a guarantee, and it also gave Jordan Poole a lot more money than he may have originally got it. Some of the speculation for his contract was 4 years, $100 million, similar to what Draymond Green got this year. He ended up getting a 4-year contract worth close to $140 million. I know a lot of that was incentives, but he's still going to take home between $123 and $127 million likely. That is a lot of money he gained financially from the leak of that video. That is just a guess. I could be wrong, but that is what I'm throwing out there. Kylan, your thoughts?
I don't want to speculate, and I don't really want to guess on who leaked it because I just think it's a really tough accusation to make.
I'm stirring the pot.
Even pin on anyone. So that's the only reason why I'm hesitant on this. You know, I'm over here saying Draymond Green needs to stop talking about it and move on. And I'm honestly going to say the same thing about who leaked the video. Like, to me, I don't know that I care anymore. I don't know that it's necessary. I don't know that I want to even throw out any speculations or guesses on it.
Gotcha.
Just because, and I don't think you're wrong, but, and I think a lot of what you said makes sense.
I will not stand on a hill with this opinion. I will not. I'm just throwing a guess out there. Plain and simple.
Yeah, I definitely, like I said, I think what you're saying makes sense. I love that people in the comments are saying that you look good in your tinfoil hat.
Hey, you know, you gotta do it sometimes, right? I mean, you gotta keep things interesting and entertaining. So
yeah, I know. No. I get it. It's an entertaining topic. I'm just going to abstain from adding into any additional opinions. I'm curious. I would love to find out if it was out there, but at the same time, I don't know what can come of this anymore. I don't know, man. I want to see the Warriors. Here's what I want, Cyrus. I want to see the Warriors move on in the 2023-24 season where we are not constantly talking about off-court drama and not talking about punches and leaks and mysterious disappearances.
And add two-way players.
Rape accusations. And it's just like, I would love to just talk about basketball on this podcast.
I hear you.
And
all right, well, let's talk basketball.
Winning basketball. So
okay. No, I'll throw basketball for you. By the way, I've starred every interesting chat for this entire show. We'll address those at the end. Here's a basketball topic for you. Okay. And this is just my observation skills coming to this interesting premise. Maybe not interesting. I don't know. But to me, this Warriors team is gonna turn into one of two teams from 2013. Team A is the Los Angeles Lakers. That is a team that wanted to recapture one last moment of glory. They traded 2 first-round picks for a 38-year-old Steve Nash. Sounds familiar. Dwight Howard was brought in, and he flailed colossally. Kobe Bryant that same year tore his Achilles because he was a workhorse for that team. It was against the Warriors when he did that. Not funny enough. But nonetheless, this team could very easily turn into that. Option B, the other road. And this road will be achieved if Jonathan Kuminga turns into a star, if not superstar player. And option B, team B, is the San Antonio Spurs of 2013, a team that had an aging core and Tim Duncan, Manu Ginobili, and Tony Parker, but they also saw Kawhi Leonard emerge. And they won a title because Kawhi Leonard, in his 3rd year, just like Jonathan Kuminga, won Finals MVP. What do you think about that comparison? Is it going to be one or the other? Do you think it's going to be something entirely different? Your thoughts, Kylan Mills.
It's becoming so hard to project what's going to happen in this upcoming Warriors season, to compare it to some of these past teams, to predict what's going to happen with this dynasty. If you had asked me 1 year ago what I thought this past season was going to be, I would have never guessed the way things turned out. Like, never. Did you anticipate all the off-court stuff that was going to happen, but then also just like the inconsistencies in the team performance when bringing back essentially, I mean, the best 7, well, I mean, because Gary Payton didn't come back until midseason, but still the first 6 players from the championship roster came back. Like, I legitimately thought the Warriors were going to run it back, like legit. And they ended up being 500 all season. God. And now this upcoming season, like, I just need to see how the roster is going to shake out. I'm very curious to see how Steve Kerr handles the young players. I want to see Moses Moody and Jonathan Kuminga both in breakout seasons. Like, I felt like they both had strong rookie seasons. And then last year, their sophomore campaigns were just like weird DMPs and like the drama that happened with JK during the postseason. I just feel like there were like kind of like asterisks next to them for whatever reason. It just like did not work. And I feel like they're both good players and we saw flashes of it. So I'd love to see those two emerge this upcoming season. I am having a very hard time predicting how this is going to work with CP3 on this roster. I think he's going to have to play a huge part. I think CP3 could hold the keys to the castle this season. I really do, because one of the biggest problems during that last season, and if the Warriors run it back with the same 5 starters that they did during the championship run, theoretically that shouldn't be the problem. Theoretically, it should be figuring out what's going on the bench. And Jordan Poole wasn't able to perform up to what he was expected to perform in the second unit. He played well when he was able to start with Steph. That wasn't what the Warriors signed him to do. He was supposed to be the primary scorer in the second unit. He wasn't able to really step up to the plate in that regard. I don't think he was great in terms of running the offense. Can CP3 fill that void, provide that veteran presence, run the offense in the second unit? And then will the Warriors figure it out size-wise? Like, is Saric enough? To try to fill some of the gaps that were left behind, because the Warriors during that championship run 2 seasons ago weren't huge either. Some of the main issues in terms of the size that we've talked about were just losing an Otto Porter Jr., losing a Nemanja Bjelica, Juan Toscano Anderson, another guy-ish who could play 3-4 that was deep, farther down the bench. But to me, like in terms of the impact players, Bjelica and Otto Porter really were the 2 that had size that the Warriors lost. Like, have they done enough to fill that void? Do they have enough size now to compete with these teams and teams that have size like Denver Nuggets? Are you convinced? I'm curious. What's your take? Are you convinced that the roster as is, and now we're going down a separate thing, but are you convinced that the Warriors have enough now to be competitive and more competitive than they were last season?
First of all, Eddie, where's the chat here? Okay. Eddie 757, I agree wholeheartedly with what you write. Eddie writes, it all rides on Jonathan Kuminga.
Interesting.
Excuse me. Without his emergence, the current roster is looking as a play-in or a 5th or 6th seed. Wholeheartedly agree. I really think if Jonathan Kuminga is not only not given trust and faith, meaning you're getting 25, 30 minutes a night, regardless of how you play, they're screwed. I do think the Warriors are a play-in team. I also believe that in order for this team to beat a team like, let's say, the Nuggets with a Jokic, or a Lakers team that has a massively huge front line, even the Nuggets have some size. The Kings are not. I've only gotten better from last year, and they pushed the Warriors to 7 games. So, to me, like, to beat those bigger teams, I've been advocating for the Warriors to use that 14th roster spot for size, and we can get into that now, actually, if you want. And I saved a lot of these I starred a lot of these chats because a lot of them talks about potential free agents. But like JaVale McGee, for example, there's speculation he's going to get bought out. If he does get bought out and becomes available, I think he would be huge. Ultimately, to beat the Nuggets, for example, which is, I mean, they're the standard bearer, right? They're the team that they're the defending world champions. They're probably the favorites to repeat, I would think. I haven't looked at the odds yet. You're going to have to throw bodies at Jokic. You're not going to stop him with any one player. Draymond Green can be effective at slowing him down, but you can't have Draymond guarding him for the first 3 quarters. Between foul trouble and exhaustion, that is not a formula that works. So you have to throw bodies at him, whether it's Kevon Looney, even though he's relatively ineffective guarding Jokic. Dario Saric is not necessarily known for defense, but at least he gives you some size. So that is where, like, even just getting one more person, a JaVale McGee, a Myers Leonard, someone who brings you some physicality and some length, to just throw at Jokic, whether it's just to get fouls, just to make life hard for him until the 4th quarter, and then Draymond can do his thing. That's my opinion on what the Warriors have to do. Now, speculation with that 14th pick is all over the place. I've heard from one insider who told me Lester Quinones is on the fast track to getting that 14th slot. I don't like that. It's not because I dislike Quinones. I think he's going to be a great player, actually, but it's because you can keep him as a 2-way. So why not keep him as a 2-way and then use that spot for someone else who gives you size? Quinones is another guard. He's not going to help you out with a player like Jokic. So that's where I'm at with that. But I do ultimately believe, regardless of what they do with that 14th roster spot, whether it's a JaVale McGee, whether it's a TJ Warren, who I would absolutely love, even though he's not a big, I think he would be a very sleeper type player to come on and play for this team. It's going to come down to Kuminga. I really do believe that. I think this whole thing is predicated on whether or not Jonathan Kuminga grows as a player in year 3. And if he turns and if he starts fulfilling that potential, who knows what could happen with this Warriors team? If he doesn't, they're screwed. I think they're screwed, plain and simple. What do you think about that response?
I definitely think that a lot hinges on Jonathan Kuminga. I think the Warriors definitely could go either way. And if you look back this last season, when they had that win streak, I'm trying to remember the exact stretch of games. It was like late January into February? But like Jonathan Kuminga, when he was putting up, like, he went through a stretch where he was putting up like 17, 18 points several games in a row, and the Warriors won. When Jonathan Kuminga put up big numbers during the season, the Warriors won games.
Yes,
I don't have the exact offhand record, but like there was an over-underline of Jonathan Kuminga scoring where the Warriors had a standout winning record. And I don't think that's any coincidence. The other thing that I'm thinking is I agree with you that JK is a huge part. I think CP3 is a huge part. Will JaVale McGee come to the Warriors? That is a move that I would support. A couple people have asked it in the chat. I think he'd be a good addition. I also want to mention we haven't really touched a ton on Summer League play, but Quinones.
What are your thoughts real fast? Because I love Trace Jackson Davis, disappointed in Pajemski. What are you thinking?
Yep. Similar thoughts. I thought that Trace Jackson Davis, I think, is a lot of promise. He's a lot better passer than I expected for a big. He had a couple of dimes. I thought he made good decisions. We expected him to be athletic, and he was. So I was really impressed with him. And I thought Quinones was explosive. I think he has a bright future with the Warriors organization, but I do agree with you that I think that 14th spot needs to go to size rather than Quinones. The Warriors are so guard heavy. He makes more sense in a 2-way. So I 100% agree with you on that. But I think it's going to be fun to watch. But I would be in wholeheartedly support of the Warriors signing JaVale McGee.
I'm same. I in fact, I think if the Warriors get McGee, I will confidently predict the Warriors to win the title. I really will. I think that's how important just getting a player like him who's
There we
smart. He's
go.
got the basketball IQ. He's got size. He's not a liability defensively. He's not old enough yet to be cooked. Yeah, it's that important to me. And who knows what Mike Dunleavy's and the ownership group is thinking. I got distracted by Chris Collins here. I'm trying to comprehend this. He writes, "You all ever realize that sports talks sound like a B porn movie sometimes?" I don't get that. I don't understand what you're trying to say. Like, it's like the quality of the sound, the context. Elaborate, please. Okay, real fast. The star. I got some star chats that we can get to. This is from the beginning of the show to now. We'll run through these and wrap it up. Douglas Mikes writes, "I'm waiting for Gallinari and Otto Porter Jr. to get bought out, hopefully. I wouldn't mind either of those players." Your thoughts, Kylie?
Agree. I wouldn't mind either of those guys. I've seen a couple people bring up OPJ. I wouldn't be opposed to him coming back. I still like a JaVale McGee better than an OPJ just because of the profile, the size, the fact that he's a center. But if OPJ was signed, I still like him as the floor spacer with some size that he was for the Warriors during the championship run. So I would like the move. I wouldn't hate it, but I think McGee fits a little bit better in terms of the need.
Agreed. Wholeheartedly agree with you. Toast the Goat writes, "I like Javonte Green." I do too. You know what I would like is if the Warriors use all 15 roster spaces. Then you could get one more guard and get one more big. But that's just me. That's what I would like. Chris Swish writes, TJ Warren would be a good pickup. We briefly talked about him. Again, I think as a 15th roster space, I'd be much happier than using up number 14 on a smaller type player. But TJ Warren, the reason why I'm excited about him, even though he's had this injury history for 3 years now, the potential factor is huge. And Rick Celebrini, like, that dude works wonders when it comes to keeping players healthy. So I would like to see someone like that, like a TJ Warren type, gambled on, but that's me. Chris Swish also writes, I'd rather pick up Javonte Green or Christian Wood. What do you think about Kylan, about Christian Wood? I would love him on the team, even though there's a lot of concerns apparently about his behavior, his mentality, his physical specimen. He's a physical specimen. I think his what he brings to the table physically would be so huge for this Warriors team. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I agree. Once again, if we're talking about players that are 7-footers or near 7-footers, like, I am completely and wholeheartedly in support. I think that, as you mentioned, like, physicality wise, all that great fit. Like, my concern is just the culture fit. Like you said, like, some people bringing up some of the reports I've been reading, the attitude. Someone, Wordman, just mentioned in the chat, he's lazy, poor defender.
The defense, I don't mind, because defense is all about it's all about the team. If you have a Jordan Poole who's sitting there like a traffic cone, and he's 6'4", so a traffic cone isn't going to do anything when you're that small. A traffic cone who's 6'10", 6'11", 7 feet, they're still gonna be having an effect out there. So if you're gonna have bad defense, regardless, at least give me size. But I don't like
love the length, love the height. I mean, I think that like you said, the physical attributes automatically.
Yes.
Is he a great defender?
Like, if Steve Kerr's this amazing coach him, get him to play defense. I don't like Rudy Gay. I'm seeing his name getting thrown out there a little bit. The dude is cooked. You might as well just bring back Andre Iguodala. What do you think about Rudy Gay?
Hey, I really
Andre Iguodala is always hurt. He's old. I don't. If you're gonna just. I don't know. Rudy Gay, it is not exciting.
I agree. I'm with you. What about the other name people are bringing up really heavily in the chat before we wrap up is Kelly Oubre Jr.
I would not hate it. I know I'm in the minority saying that just because he's a 6'8" athletic freak, can play defense. He's not. I hope these last 2-3 years have humbled him, so he's no longer this person who needs to be a starter, who needs the ball in his hands so much. I would not mind him, but I feel like I'm in a very small minority saying that. What do you think?
I don't think he's what the Warriors need. Like, in that one season with the Dubs, like, I don't think he was a bad player. I think they need a true big. And
Agreed.
If we're talking about the 14th, 15th spots, the roster's already pretty full. I think his skill set isn't necessarily the biggest need. If we're talking about, a JaVale McGee, a Christian Wood, like, to me, those are just better signings. versus a Kelly Oubre Jr. And so V says in the chat, I think we're being too picky with our 14th player. I don't. I think that size and depth in the front court is still lacking. So I think you've got to use that spot to address it. And if JaVale McGee and Christian Wood are available, that's who the Warriors need to be pursuing, before at least going after Kelly Oubre Jr. type.
Absolutely. The 14th roster spot has mattered on every championship team. If you just look most recently at 2022, your 14th player was either Damian Lee or Juan Toscano Anderson or one of the lottery picks who were rookies that year, maybe Gary Payne II, whoever it is, they were playing and they were important. Strength in numbers is a very true adage. So I'm totally with you on that. Wordman quickly writes, why aren't people talking about how sloppy Steph and Dre were and how bad Clay's shot selection was? Yeah, we've been talking about that all year on this show. So maybe other shows aren't, but we've talked about that extensively. Douglas Mikes, this is an interesting question. I don't have a good answer, but Kylan, I'm curious to know what you think. Do you think Chris Paul could be traded? Like people have said that like maybe he's an asset that if it doesn't work out, you can still trade him middle of the season. I don't know. What do you think? That's an interesting question to pose, but
it's an interesting prospect. I could see it happening. I could 1,000% see it happening. It wouldn't surprise me if it all doesn't work out. Like we're talking about, what is the fit going to be with CP3, both on the court and in the locker room? If for some reason it didn't shake out, I could see the Warriors making a trade if by February things aren't going well. Like I think if the Warriors are in the same boat as they were last season and they're like, barely keeping their heads above 500, like I could see CP3 being shipped out 100%.
Yeah, I hear. And I'm curious to know what they would get back for a player like him. No sleep, real vibes. I forgot to mention Glenn Robinson III as well, who has publicly said that the Warriors are interested in him. I don't know how that followed up since the workout in Vegas, but that has been out there. Yeah, who knows? I would love him on the team personally. I like Glenn Robinson III. He's a bigger wing. Still, he's not even 30 yet, so I don't agree with the notion that he's cooked, which some people have said. And then last but not least, in terms of what I've saved. E61 HGM says, is that a Def Leppard shirt I see, Kylan? Are you sporting the old 80s
it is.
Walkman?
It's a Def Leppard shirt.
Damn. Is that the one with the one-armed drummer? Is that Def Leppard? Am I thinking of the right band? I don't know if it would be on your shirt, but I
thought you meant is there one?
No, but I think their drummer is like one-armed and he kicks ass. If I remember correctly. I don't know. That's a long time since I've kept track of Def Leppard, but are you a Def Leppard fan, Kylan?
Yeah, I mean, I like their popular songs. I just like old band t-shirts. Like that's like my jam.
Nice. And a few other people adding Harry Giles would not mind him either. He is an athletic freak. I don't know much about him. That's why I haven't talked a lot about him. I haven't done a lot of research, but I wouldn't mind him. For what I do know, I think he would be awesome. He's like a 6'10", big with like a 7'3" wingspan. So the dude's just really long and athletic. And that's exactly what the Warriors need. So I'm all for that. Kylan, any last thoughts as we wrap it up?
No, I mean, I think it'll be interesting to see what the Warriors do with these last one or two spots. Hopefully we'll be talking about a move in a week or two, but I think the players we talked about are good additions. I hope the Draymond Green stuff dies down. I'm ready to move on. I'm ready to be done talking about it. I think those are my last thoughts. I hope the Warriors add a big. I hope this stuff dies down. I'm very intrigued by the way the Warriors are going to fit on the basketball court this season with CP3, what his role is going to be, if he's going to accept that role. And I think there's going to be a lot to keep an eye on come September.
There we go. Thank you for joining us. Kylan, welcome back. You were missed big time.
Thank you for having me.
You're not going to disappear for
Thank you everyone for joining us.
Absolutely. And we'll try to make those doldrums of the offseason not so bad. Again, we got a Warriors assistant coach coming on the show soon. I'm so ecstatic about that. Kylan, great to see you as always. And we'll be back at this soon. Thank you, everyone. Peace the F out. Later.
Peace.
Oh, that was awesome. That was awesome. All right. Good stuff. Good stuff.
Yay!
How did